Welcome to our F3 podcast, where we discuss all things that are faith, family, and finances. And remember, as always, no subject is off limits. Well, as always, we got a good one for you today. We are your hosts. I am Dr. Lionel M. Blair Sr., and I'm sitting next to my lovely, gorgeous, perfect wife, perfect in all her ways, Dr. Jasmine Blair. Welcome
Thank,
again.
thank you for that introduction. And see, you got your voice back this week,
Yes,
so
yes,
you
yes.
sounding a lot better. And I guess today you gonna make up for what last episode you could
You
not
know it.
say.
You know it.
So, welcome to our podcast again. Be sure to click like, subscribe, and share. Hit the notification bell so you can be notified every time we premiere a new episode. Last episode, we concluded our two-part series on My Pastor is Wrong. What do I do next? If you haven't had a chance to check those out, make sure you definitely go check those out. And also leave comments under those videos. We want to hear from you. If you've had an experience like that, where you were able to walk through your pastor success with them through that process and successfully see them restore. We want to hear from you. What was that like for you? I don't believe we hear enough about the success stories
Right.
of people who are able to stick with their pastor through a process like that and to see them restored and return to the pulpit with the grace and honor that is needed to be restored to them rightfully so. So definitely we want to hear from you on that. So let's go ahead and get into today's topic. Stop stressing over your grown children, or better yet, your grown tail children.
Grown tail cherry.
Because, the reality of it is there are so many people that we have met, we've prayed for, we've prophesied over, we've ministered to,
Yeah.
and, they're hindered in how much they can obey God, or the way that they can obey God, because of their adult children or the adult children's children, i.e. their grandchildren.
Grandbabies.
And we have met so many people who have sat on their call, they've diminished their call, they've handicapped their call because they've got this unhealthy, unbiblical connection to these adult children, so much so to where when they are given an instruction, given an assignment, God is impressing something upon them, they're stuck between, okay, well, what about my children?
Right.
So I really want to get into that today and see if we can answer some of these things and why this turns out to cause them not really to be so effective, or to really truthfully even get to the place where they can hear, well done, my good and faithful servant, because you haven't done anything well. You've dragged these adult children along with you. So why is that? I'm gonna kick that over to you.
Well, first of all, I want to start off by saying this. You're not responsible for anybody grown,
That's good.
especially your children. Okay, you're not responsible for that. That's why they call you grandfather, grandmother, because you graduated from being a mother.
Mhm.
You graduated from being a father. Now, I want to give a disclaimer. We're not saying now if you don't have anything to do with your grown children. We're not telling you cut them off, or ostracize them, anything like that.
No.
But we're talking about you taking a ungodly responsibility
That part.
on yourself for caring for them, to where it hinders the call of God on your life.
That's right.
So I believe one of the reasons why, and we'll probably get into this one a little later, even more detail, but one of the reasons why these mothers and these fathers, especially these mothers, begin to try to hoard over their grown children because of guilt.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Okay. They have guilt, but see, some of them too, they have the need to control.
Let's get into that.
They have the need to control. We've met controlling parents. Their grown children wanted to come to our ministry, and they felt like they was losing a grip over their children.
Mm-hmm.
A grip that they shouldn't have had anyway.
Right.
It's almost like they can't even make life decisions without considering you. They can't move, they can't obey God, they can't answer their call. We've seen this stuff, where the parents, especially the mothers, not saying fathers don't do it, but in our cases, we've seen mostly mothers do this. where the mothers feel like they just have to have a bunch of say and control.
Yes, it reminds me of that one young lady several years ago. There was a young woman who came in. She was on fire for God. God healed her body physically. Doors were opening. She got a new house, new job, new car. All this stuff was happening. Then her mother got into a disagreement. She didn't like something we said about wearing robes at church and wearing all this stuff. Long story short, she pulls the daughter out of the church and drags her daughter to her
Yeah,
church. And then her daughter gets hurt at that church. Fast forward to a year or so down the line, the young woman's not even serving God anymore. She's in a worse state than where we found her.
yeah,
And it's unfortunate because had her mother just answered her call at her church and not
right,
felt the need to drag her daughter along with her because she didn't like or she didn't agree with, what we felt about robes, that young woman may very well still be serving God today.
right. And believe me, she ain't serving God, and ain't trying to.
Mm-mm.
As a result of this,
Mm-hmm.
because some parents feel like, okay, like you're growing, but I'm afraid subconsciously that you're gonna grow apart from me.
Mm-hmm.
And really, to a degree, you ought to want your grown child to grow apart from you.
Exactly. Yes.
Not to cut you off, anything like that, but to grow from their need of you all the time.
Right.
I believe, another reason is, we have sometimes people have an unhealthy codependency.
That's good.
Unhealthy codependency. It's like there's nothing wrong with needing people, but
Mm-hmm.
see, when you become needy for people,
Mm-hmm.
that's when it becomes a problem. See, some of these parents, they still want the children to help pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
They still want the children, to help give them rides everywhere, because they either can't drive or they too scared to drive.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. It's just this codependency where I can't live without you.
Mm-hmm.
If you cannot make a living without your grown children, something is wrong with you. You need to repair your life.
Yeah, that part.
You need to repair your life. It's just like, I can understand if you have a big old crazy mansion big enough to house everybody,
Yes.
or whatever. But I've seen parents living with their children, and it's just like, okay, they can't even make a living on their own with their own family without you,
And
without you.
and then if you really want that child to obey God, they're stuck in their decision making because they got to think about you. It's like you're stuck over them, they're stuck over you, and the both of y'all become hindered. But I like
Yeah,
what you said about that codependency piece because for a lot of these parents that we've met, it comes out, all super spiritual and religious as wisdom and concern. And,
right,
God spoke. And listen, some of you have legitimate stories with this if you got something legitimate, this ain't for you. This for the illegitimate people.
right,
Oh, well, God told me that they're going to be a part of my ministry. God told me, even though they're my natural child, they're going to be my spiritual child. It comes out all extra deep and spiritualized.
right.
But what it really is an unhealthy attachment and an unhealthy codependency because you need somebody to enable your foolery. Some people are just as unstable, and you need to let your child go. You need to actually go submit somewhere. You might need to go live with somebody and get some type of training and development, and then come out into your ministry that way. And detach from all these other people who have made your stagnation comfortable for you.
Yeah,
That's the reality of, for some people, the child is only the holdup to their actual deliverance because you've got somebody enabling you. And then as soon as you disagree with whatever said, you run back to this adult child. Well, ain't nobody gonna say nothing to my mama, ain't nobody gonna say nothing to my daddy. No, you need somebody to say something to you. If you are serious about your call and your development, there comes a point in the season where you are going to have to put them aside for a season. And I love what you said. We're not saying cut them off, but for some of you, you might need to go back to episode 2 about when to cut a relative or family member off. And we talk about that there in detail about all the signs and things that you may need to actually cut a relative off.
Right.
They may actually fit that bill and you might actually need to cut them off. But in most cases, you don't. But it does require you to step back from them for a season for your development and training. You will find most of the emergencies that they have are not things that are related to you. Most of their emergencies, in fact, are distractions. If every time they have an emergency on a day that you have to minister, on a day you have to speak somewhere, when you're deep in prayer, when you've decided to go into fasting and consecration, and now they're blowing your phone up 30, 40 times because something happened, that is a distraction. But most people, oh, well, my child needs me. Oh, I got to do for my child. No, you need to really deal with. You need to really deal with what's going on with you. And you need to learn how to identify those distractions, adult child or not, grandchild or not, niece or nephew or not. Deal with those distractions.
Another one, misplaced compassion.
That's good.
Oh my God, I've seen this so many times. Your child is a hard head, knucklehead, and you keep bailing them out. You keep robbing the kingdom to bail your children out.
That's good.
Okay. Your children lay up and make a bunch of babies.
Come on.
Okay, and now you are the designated babysitter. Okay, but you're supposed to be apostle, prophet, a pastor of God. You're supposed to be the bishop of God, but you can't even execute your job fully because you're too busy babysitting. I wonder how many times we've seen that.
Oh yeah. And then you've got the ones who make the child. Now this can be the son or the daughter, but in most cases that we've experienced, it's the son who has multiple children by multiple people, and now you feel compelled to go pick all his children up so they can see each other and know their siblings, because you feel bad about the fact that he's not picking up his own children while he's continuing to make more children. No,
you are not to cover his or her irresponsibility.
That's right.
If anything, you get on them. Okay, but at the end of the day, it's not your responsibility to ensure. And see, this is why a lot of these old mothers who were called to be prophets, they never answer their call because they're too busy trying to stitch their family back together.
Come on, that part right. Woo! Say that again.
There was too big. A lot of these old mothers who were really called to be prophets.
Come on.
Okay, they spent their whole life trying to stitch their family back together. I can only imagine them standing before God. But God said, "You was a good and faithful big mama." And you fell short of your calling. And see, some people, all they do, they don't have no ministry because all they do is operate in gifts. They think their gifts are good enough. You think your gift is good enough while you sitting around trying to piece together something. You don't know if God is trying to bust that thing up or not.
Exactly.
You don't know if there's a judgment on your family. See, here's the thing, and I believe in kinsmen redeemers and all of that kind of stuff. But that don't mean it's supposed to be you.
That's right.
That don't mean it's supposed to be you. You're not responsible. So, all of this misplaced compassion, because, you feel bad. Well, what about the grandbabies? I'm sorry. At the end of the day, it's not your responsibility either, especially when you're barely surviving yourself. Most of these women, and I got to say this, most of the women, they're struggling themselves.
That's
okay,
true.
They're struggling themselves. You don't have no big huge house for you to house all them in. You see what I'm saying? It is not your responsibility the majority of the time, and where we are allowing false burdens to be laid on us, which brings me to the next thing too. And this gonna sound harsh, but I can show you in the Bible where Jesus himself said it. A lot of people are not willing to pay the full price to walk with God.
Come on. A
lot of people are not willing to pay the full price to walk with God.
Yeah, let's go there for a minute.
And I'm going to give you a Bible verse, right?
Come on.
Okay, this is Matthew 19. Okay, and I'm going to start at verse 27. And Peter answered and said unto him, see, we have left all and followed you. Therefore, what shall we have? Right? He says, what shall we have? We've left all and we followed you. So Jesus said unto them, surely I say to you that in the regeneration, when the Son of Man sits on the throne of his glory, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel, and everyone who has left houses, brothers, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children,
Woo!
or lands, huh? For my name's sake shall receive a hundredfold and inherit eternal life. But many who are first will be last, and the last first. So back during biblical times, okay, when you had a lot of times when you followed Christ back then, you were disowned by your relatives.
Come on.
Okay, or you following Christ put division between family relationships. You understand? Those are some of the relationships we hold the most dear. Okay, but if you say you really love God, if you had to choose between God and your child, see, a lot of us we can't even imagine choosing between God and our child. Well, when I birthed them, or they came from my loins, so it's just like, okay, like how can I choose between God and my child? But what happens if it comes down to you having to choose God over your child? Because see, the hard reality, I'm gonna say hard, not harsh. The hard reality is, in the Bible, God cut off generations. Eli, he cut off Eli and his whole generation, his Eli and all his descendants from the priesthood. Two of Aaron's sons, Hophni and Phinehas, they tried to offer sacrifice illegally apart from the supervision of their father, the supervising priest, and the Bible called it strange fire. And guess what? God killed them both, and Aaron didn't flinch. The Bible says he held his peace. What you gonna do when God kill your child? See, we can't imagine God doing anything like that, because he's just the loving Savior, the loving Jesus, the loving Jesus, and you're mourning over some. Because here's the thing, our life is but a vapor, right? Our life is but a vapor, right? So even 500 years down here is like it's like a poof.
Yeah.
So you got to, God is judging by his eternal standards here, not by our human sentiments.
Yeah, do that thing again. You just did.
Oh,
do it again.
He's just a loving Savior. He's just Jesus, just a little lamb. Mary had a little lamb. But see, as loving as God is, he also has a system of justice in place. And he has laws, and we cannot keep violating his laws and think that we're going to keep being recipients of his grace. Okay, grace is freely given, but God also have laws. Come on. So some of the things that I'm saying right now, we can't imagine God doing, but or God requiring.
Right.
But here it is. Some of them left what? Brothers, sisters. They left fathers, mothers. They left spouses.
The sons of Zebedee left their father in that boat.
They left the father in the boat, and you never heard about him ever. You never heard about him again. You heard about the mother later on. So I know the father was offended with his children. The father was offended with his sons because they left the family business to follow Jesus. So when it comes to adult children, sometimes the will of God will draw a wedge. you know, whether they're in Christ or whether they're not. Because see, if you have a call of God on your life, God will judge you first, not by how good of a mother or father you was, but how good of a prophet, apostle, or whatever. He's going to judge you by the fact that you love me before you love them.
Mm-hmm.
Because God is higher. So there's a ranking to how we're supposed to how we're supposed to love people, love God above all. Remember, I used to tell you all the time. I said, listen,
Mm-hmm.
the day I stop following God is the day you stop following me.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, I told you that.
Yep.
Yeah, I used to tell her that all the time. Because I wanted her to know God come first in this thing. She better not put me before God. Okay, I listen. You ain't gonna put me in a position where God had to strike me because you made me an idol.
Mm.
Okay, so yeah, you honor me in my proper place, but God is above all.
That's right.
God is above all, and a lot of you parents out there who have adult children, you have to realize God is above all, especially if you have a call of God on your life. Now you don't got no call, you don't got no call. God will tell you, go to the cookout, baby. Yeah, go take them grandbabies and adopt them. Go adopt
Mm-mm.
them grandbabies. It's okay.
Mm-mm.
Adopt them grand. No, but when the hand of God is on your life, when you're following Christ directly, man,
Mm-hmm.
listen, you got to make some tough choices.
That's true.
And see, people don't want to do, being a Christian. I'll tell you something. People think Christians are weak. No, you got to have strength to be a Christian because you got to make decisions like this.
That's right.
We ain't no punks and no sissies over here. Okay, we it takes strength to do what we do. It takes strength, okay, to follow Christ. Okay, biblically. Okay, not just go to church.
So the next thing that I want to talk about, Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way that he should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it. For some of you, the over control, the unhealthy involvement is for the guilt for how you train them.
Yeah.
Let me say this, all right? If you train them right, you should be able to be like Aaron. When God struck his sons down, what did it say? The Bible said, and Aaron held his peace.
Yep.
If you train them right, you shouldn't have to worry about it. Shouldn't matter what it looked like while they're out here getting their testimony, as I like to call it. If you've trained them right, that's a promise in the word that they're not going to depart from it. So you shouldn't be trying to force them to do a certain thing or to shorten the amount of the testimony that they're trying to get. I know they might make some decisions. It's like, okay, Lord, you grown. I didn't raise you like that. Let them get their testimony. They gonna end up preaching that later. God knows how to put his hand on them. And you never know when they're in a place of rebellion, and now God has to deal with them to bring them on back. Trust me, it'll make some good sermon series later on. But you need to pray for them and let them go. Some of you need to forgive yourself. Maybe you were that single parent and you had to work a bunch of jobs and you weren't home. Maybe you weren't raised right, so you struggled through raising them, and there were certain things you shoulda, coulda, woulda when it came to them because you did not have. And see, out of that guilt, they try to, your child a mess. So it's like, okay, well, let me get the grandbabies. Maybe at least I can save them and then try to make something of their life. Forgive yourself and let go. If you train them right, don't worry about it. If you didn't train them right, ask God for forgiveness and move forward. They've got to work out their own soul salvation in great fear and trembling. As an adult, it's not your job for you to drag them to church, drag them to conferences, drag them here. I can't tell you how many people who have brought their adult children to some of our meetings. The adult children didn't want to be there, and they're like, oh, I'm just praying for them, but they obviously don't want to be here.
Right.
Maybe they got a word and they were shocked or surprised, but most of them didn't really do anything different. Stop dragging your child everywhere that they don't want to be.
I had
a grown child.
Right. I had a conversation with my Aunt Wanda just the other day, right? And you remember part of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about, she talked to me about this all the time, about how she always knew the hand of God was on my life, right? Now, between my Aunt Wanda and my grandmother and my great-grandmother, the three of them kept me in church. They kept me in church. You hear me? So seeds were always being deposited in me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I can remember my grandmother, my great grandma, always praying for me,
Mm-hmm.
always praying for me. So here's the thing: I am a product of prayers, okay? Because I also went astray. Okay, I started running them streets. Okay, I started smoking that reefer. Okay, some of y'all still do. Okay, I was a stone alcoholic, you know, and I was living a really rough life. All right, and I kind of had a rough teenage, upbringing. I was kind of here, there, everywhere, but that's a whole nother story for
Mm-hmm.
another day. But the point that I'm making is this: is that even though I went away, I end up coming back.
That's right.
Why? Because raise up a child in the way he should go. When he's old, he shall not depart. Even if you keep putting the right seeds in them, see, you got to keep speaking the
Yes.
right thing, putting them in the right environment. You know, because see, ultimately, you can't play God in a person's life.
That's good.
You don't know how God is going to touch a person. You know, I look at our son now. I mean, what he's 8 years old and he loves church. And that boy be lifting his hands, he be crying, doing worship and everything else. Like it just melts my heart.
Yes.
Why? Because we're putting the right seeds in him, and
Yes.
we are putting him in the right environment. And God forbid if he was to go astray when he get older. Guess what? He got something in him that's gonna pull him right on back.
That's right.
Pull him right on back. And you don't have say so over how God decides to pull somebody back.
And you sure don't have say so over what they experience while they out getting their testimony. You can't prevent certain things in their life. That's due to their choices. Now, all things will work together for
Yep.
their good as they're loving the Lord, but it's not up to you to control what them all things
Come
are.
on.
A lot of it we do for image, out of
Right.
embarrassment,
Right.
or how it looks on the family, or how it looks on
That's
your
it.
call.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should condone certain stuff, but you stop meddling your hands in their life because you want their life to look a certain way to keep up an image.
Yeah, cause I know certain relatives was embarrassing me. Because on one side of my family, I ain't gonna say which side. You know, allegedly, I was the only one that ever went to jail. I was the only one that dropped out of high school. I was the only one, only this and only that, because it was all about an image.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? But see, when God's hand is on someone, you can't dictate how God chooses to process them. Now, for me,
Mm-hmm.
it took me being homeless, sleeping on the side of railroad tracks. You see what I'm saying? I'm cleaning myself with frozen leaves and all this other stuff. It took that for me to come
Mm-hmm.
to an end to myself. But for somebody else, it may take them being on a deathbed
Yeah,
to repent. Because at the end of the day, it's more important for their soul to be saved.
that's right.
So when it comes to your grown children, you don't know how God is going to process them, and you have to be okay with the plan of God and not your plan because you have a certain image for your family.
That's good. And so, as you make this decision to kind of let go of this grip and start to move forward in answering your call and stop stressing over your grown tail children, you cannot be their bailout plan.
Come on,
You can't be the emergency babysitter. You can't be the emergency ATM. You
come
can't
on.
be the emergency ride to work. They're going to have to figure these things out for themselves because you keep showing up during their emergencies does not teach them the level of responsibility that they need to have the discipline not to keep ending up in those situations. I understand them being on a rough spot. I understand you helping them through a rough spot. Okay, they got laid off the job. Something unexpected happened. They had a major surgery, was out of work. Stuff like that, nobody can plan for. That's not somebody's irresponsibility.
Right.
But if it's not something that fits those types of categories and they keep finding themselves in this position at the last minute and you are always the bailout plan, you're always the emergency, something's just not cutting it. And you're going to have to say no sometimes. Even if you got the $100, $200, $300, you're going to have to say no. Even if you have the time to babysit, you're going to have to say no. Even if you can be the ride to work, you're going to have to say no. Why? Because at some point, they're going to have to mature out of where they are, because they're an adult. They're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, still running to you as the solution instead of thinking on their own and finding a way outside of you to grow to another level.
Right.
That's a form of this arrested development. If you're 40, oh, let me call my mama. Let me call my mama. Let me call my daddy. Let me call my daddy. No, at some point, you should rise above that and be the solution. And the truth of the matter is that may be one of the most hurtful things. Lord, I don't want them to lose their job. Oh, the grandbabies. But honestly, they should have thought about all that before they had them.
That's right.
They really should have. So at some point, you're going to have to let them go and pray and trust God and just let it be, because you cannot keep being pulled from your call every time they do something irresponsible.
Come on.
Ooh, let me say that again.
Yeah.
You cannot keep being pulled from your call every time they do something irresponsible.
And I can hear somebody right now. Well, but family is your first ministry. We've already addressed that one. All right.
Argue with your mama.
In a previous podcast, we already addressed that one, and we addressed it biblically. All right. So for you all who believe that, okay, family is your first ministry or whatever, which there's no Bible verse to support that, you can go back to our podcast where we talk about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got any closing remarks for the people today?
Yes, I'm gonna say this. Okay, this don't mean you don't love, but how you express your love is different.
Mm-hmm.
You can love your grown children. My peoples loved me, but guess what? They didn't always come to my rescue. Okay,
That's
they didn't come to my rescue. Okay, I had to learn hard knocks. All right, and some of your children will have to learn hard knocks.
That's true.
And that's just how it is.
That's true. And the reality of it is you've got to grow to a place to where you can obey God without the stress of your grown tail children. That's the reality of it. They'll always have things going on in their life. Some of them may be married, they may have stuff going on. And I understand being there in times of true emergency.
Right.
Again, medical emergency, legal emergency. God forbid somebody shoot up the house or something like that. That's a legitimate emergency.
Right.
But we're talking about these day in and day out nuances that they could have planned and prepared for. They could have disciplined themselves for, to where they would not be calling you with these last minute things that are not really an emergency. They're just their personal emergency.
Right.
If it's not something that would be an emergency for the average person, if it happened to them, it's not a real emergency. It's a personal emergency out of their poor performance and their poor planning and their poor judgment and responsibility over their life. And you cannot be pulled back from those things. It's okay to let the phone ring or let it go to voicemail. And honestly, if they love you the way that they say that they do, then they will understand and respect where you are in your relationship with God and the call that you have on your life. Most of the time, the attitude is just because of the inconvenience that they can't just immediately get what they want from you because you are in a place with God. That is the stuff that you have to address. That's the stuff you have to stop. And let me tell you something. No matter how many times you help them, no matter how many times you give them money, or do this or do that, it's not going to make them grow up.
Come on, that's it.
They're going to have to be to a place where you get them to a place where you're no longer an option. You need to put a time limit. Listen, I know you got this job. You need this job. I know you don't have a babysitter. I'm going to give you 6 months to find somebody. After that, I can't do this no more. That way, it forces them to get to a certain place. So this was definitely a good topic. I want to thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Check out all the links that we're going to have available for you guys for different opportunities for you to move forward and get to a better place in your life and in your financial journey. Anything else you want to say before we go? No, just that we love y'all and appreciate your support as always. All right. Until next time on the F3 podcast.